Yes, my dear friend, in this lesson we will learn about how to draw circle and rectangle shapes using Pygame module. So let's get started. Let's move to our project folder and let's create a new Python file here. Let the Python file name be shapes2.py and let's press enter. So let's start with the circle. Our function to draw a circle is the circle function. Its usage is, so let's create a command here, pygame dot draw dot circle, and also open and close parentheses. If we want to draw a circle using pygame module, we should use the circle function in draw Python file. It takes 5 different parameters. The first parameter is the variable name in which window we want to display it. For example, if our window variable name is, for example, screen, what we have to do now is to define screen variable as first parameter. The second parameter is the color of the circle. For example, if we want to draw a yellow circle, what we have to do now is to create a new tuple here, and in the tuple we should define as 255, 255, 0. And you see, if you want to set the color of the circle, we should create a new tuple, and in the tuple we should define 3 different values. So let's continue. The third parameter is the center coordinate of the circle. Again, it's defined as a tuple and takes 2 values. Let's do this now, put a comma and let's create a new tuple here. These are x and y values. For example, let's set it as the x value, for example 150, comma, and let the y value be, for example 250, and let's continue and put a comma. The fourth parameter is the radius of the circle. It's defined in pixels as an integer. So when we say 155 here, the radius of the circle becomes 155. And also our last parameter is our thickness value. It has the same usage logic as the line function. For example, if I set value to here, our circle thickness will be 2 pixels. Alright, we have successfully learned how to use circle function in Pygame module. Now let's get acquainted with drawing the rectangle shape. Our function to draw a rectangle is the rect function. Its usage is, so let's move to a new line and let's create a new command here. What we have to do now is to call pygame dot draw dot rect, and also open and close parentheses. It takes 4 different parameters. The first parameter is the variable name in which window we want to display it. For example, let's define as screen again and put a comma. And the second parameter is the color of the rectangle. If we want to draw a green rectangle, we need to define as, so let's create a new tuple here and let's set it as 0, 255, 0, and we are done. So now let's move outside of tuple and put a comma again. So let's learn about the third parameter. The third parameter is the parameter that defines the x, y, width and height information of the rectangle. So what do I mean? All of these values, so let's create a new command here. First we should create a new tuple here. In the tuple, the first value of the tuple must be the x value, so which is starting point, and put a comma, and the second value of the tuple will be the y value, and also it is the starting point of y-axis, and also we need to put a comma again, and the third value will be the width of the rectangle, and the last value of the tuple will be the height of the rectangle. So it will be the height. We need to define within the tuple that takes 4 different values. So for example, let's move inside of our rect function again and move to the third parameter And also let's create a new tuple here. For example, let the initial value of x be 50 and put a comma again, and let the width be, for example, 100. So the x-axis of our rectangle starts at 50 and ends at 150 because the width value is 100. And for example, let the initial value of y be 10. So let's move to the second value of the tuple and let's set it as value 10. And also let the height be, for example, 60. So let's define as 60. The y-axis of our rectangle starts at 10 and ends at 70 because the height value is 60. And also we should define one more parameter here. And the fourth parameter of our rectangle is the thickness. It has the same usage logic as in our other functions. For example, if we define it as 10, we get a rectangle with a thickness of 10 pixels. So we are done. Yes, my dear friend, in this lesson we learned how to use rect and circle function using the Pygame module. So now let's move on to our other lessons and let's do an example.